Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com.
Computing outside, Classic Empire, head-to-head, down to the line. Cloud Computing wins the Preakness.
Buongiorno, everybody. John Stetton, Past the Wire, Saratoga Today, day 26 of the meet. Things moving along. We'll start today with a little sad news that most of you probably know. Wayne Hughes, the founder and owner of Spendthrift Farm, passed yesterday. He was loved in the game and by everyone who knew him. I never had the pleasure of personally meeting Mr. Hughes, but I know several people who did know him and did have the pleasure of meeting him, and never heard a bad thing about him, and everyone who knew him loved him, and he had an impact on a lot of people's lives and a tremendous impact on the sport that we all love. So may Mr. Hughes rest in peace, and may the farm that he built and made into a premier farm in the sport of kings live on and carry his dreams and his visions forward. With that, we thank Spendthrift Farm for helping us make these videos possible. We thank Zilla Racing Stables for the same, and we thank our friends at Amwager for the same. So give a little prayer if you're so inclined for Mr. Hughes and his family and extended family and all the people that he had such a positive impact on. I want to start today's show by talking about first we'll start with a little old Saratoga story that some of you will be familiar with, some of you may not, and you'll see why I'm bringing this up in a minute. Racing used to have a lot of great rivalries, horses that just competed against each other over and over. And we don't have as much of that today. And today we're so, some of us, the older ones that are so much traditionalists and love the game so much and, saw some of that, we long for it. And some of the ones that are more newcomers are eager for it as well, because I guess they've read about it and heard about it. And we just long for those rivalries, and we don't get to see them because horses retire, horses get hurt. There's so much racing now and so many more spots that we see these real small stake fields all over the country, and it's frustrating. It didn't used to be that way. We used to have a lot of rivalries. Sometimes we had small fields, but we had those rivalries, and they continued sometimes throughout the year, sometimes over the course of 2 years, and it was great for the sport and great for the game, and we all loved it. One of the best of those rivalries, which I guess peaked but didn't end in the Belmont Stakes that year, was Affirmed and Alydar. Those two threw down like nobody I ever saw. And, the Belmont Stakes, when Affirmed won the Triple Crown, and Alydar actually got a nose in front on the outside of him, deep in the stretch, probably around the 8th pole. And Affirmed came back on the rail. It was one of the best Triple Crown races ever. One of the best, races ever, and certainly one of the best Belmont Stakes ever. But that rivalry continued, and it went to Saratoga, where I believe Affirmed either won. I think he might have got beaten to Jim Dandy that year, but came back into Travers. I think Steve Cawthon rode him into Jim Dandy, got hurt, and couldn't ride him back into Travers, and they made the move to one of the best riders ever, and in the conversation of the best of all time, Lafitte Pincay. And he came in to ride Affirmed into Travers. He wasn't riding regularly in New York at that point. He was had already moved his tack out to California. Was a California rider, and Lafitte came in to ride him. And Alydar, actually after that Belmont, ran into Whitney against older horses and exploded and dominated. He ran a monster Whitney off that Belmont Stakes and won the Whitney against older, and then was coming back against straight 3-year-olds into Travers. You don't see many horses run into Whitney and win it and come back into Travers. First off, you'd be running into Whitney against older, and you just don't see it. But back then, that's exactly what happened. And I was there for the whole meet then. I was, young guy, kid at the races, and just enthralled with it all. Come Travers Day, I want to say Affirmed was like 4-5. Alydar was like even money. There were only a couple of other horses in the race. One of them was a horse named Shake, Shake, Shake that Angel Cordero was riding. The story went, and there was a lot of media coverage and newspaper coverage and interviews at the time that Angel kind of helped out George Velasquez, who he rode every day with and was buddies with, in the race by taking Affirmed out very, very wide and floating Pincay out into the middle of the track, allowing Alydar to move up the rail. Well, it played out that way, and Laz Barrera, the trainer of Affirmed, was furious publicly, saying that, Angel won't ride for me anymore. He floated my horse out. Affirmed wound up winning the race, but he did come in on the turn on Alydar, causing George Velasquez to check severely, drop way back, and come again in a tremendous losing effort that ultimately was given to him by the stewards as a win. The reason I bring this up is because it's a great Saratoga story. It's a great racetrack story, and it's part of history. And yesterday, I interviewed for the Past the Wire TV show Lafitte Pincay, and we talked about that and several other races in detail about what, quote, really happened on the track that day. And it's a great story, and it's not what a lot of people think. And that interview is going to be up. I'll probably put it up Monday after the Alabama and Pacific Classic weekend is up. So check Past the Wire TV for that interview with Lafitte Pincay, and a real classic Saratoga story amongst many others. And I think you'll really like it and enjoy it, and it's a great story, and you'll know firsthand what really happened and what didn't happen. And again, media and history sometimes get things wrong. It happened with Ruffian, we know that. All Ones, the only real Ruffian story by those who were there, is on Past the Wire. Ray DiStefano is the man who actually held her as she was euthanized and was with her from the moment she came out of the operation all through the recovery room, all till the time that she was euthanized. And, he collaborated with me on that story. And it's definitely worth reading if you have not read it, because what most people think, or many people think, happened with Ruffian is not what really happened. So I like to get the story straight. I don't like to rewrite history, but I think the Sport of Kings deserves accurate descriptions of what happened on and off the racetrack surrounding this great game that we all love. But anyway, I think you'll like the Lafitte Pincay interview when you get a chance to check it out. We'll take a little pause. We'll come back. We'll talk about Saratoga today as opposed to way back then, and see what we could do with this weather situation. So give us a second, and we will be right back.
Reach the starting gate. It's post time. Cold front, the favorite comes forward. And they're into the stretch. Cold front, put to the 10. Cold front does it again. Right with the field the Amsterdam.
People are always fast to label a track, a speed track, or a speed biased racetrack. I think it's a big mistake that people make, and I've written a lot of articles and done some videos and podcasts on the differences between a real bias and what I'll call a fake bias. Okay, and I'll give you an example. The Breeders' Cup a couple of years ago at Keeneland, you weren't a race or two in the card when horses went wire to wire and really, really fast, when everybody on TV was saying, oh, you got to be on the lead, track bias, speed track, you can't come from off the pace. And if you go back and look at the charts of the Breeders' Cup at Keeneland 2 years ago, that just wasn't the case. I mean, Essential Quality won the Juvenile from off the pace. Okay, when there's a true track bias and a true speed bias, horses don't come from way out of it and win. It's just how it is. Okay, at least in my mind, how I classify a track bias. A true speed bias carries horses on the front home that would not have won the race. So when you have an only speed or a horse who goes to the lead and nobody goes with him, or he shakes off the other speed, or he's the fastest horse in the race and wins, doesn't necessarily point to a speed or a track bias. The best and/or fastest horse won the race. It's when a horse who wouldn't have won on the lead wins on the lead that you start looking at a possible track bias. And you don't know that in a race or two. You know that after you're, probably halfway or maybe even, close to halfway through the card, because, and you don't know it unless you're looking at, well, are there other reasons that this horse won? Was it an only speed? Did the other speed not go? And the same thing coming from off the pace if you're looking at a closers bias. Was it a race that fell apart? Or was it a true closers bias where the speed tired more than it would have on a fair and honest track? And there's a difference. A track can be lightning fast, producing lightning times. Track records getting broken all over the place. Doesn't mean that it's a biased track. It just means it's a fast track. A track can be very fast and very honest at the same time, which is what happened at Keeneland in the Breeders' Cup a couple of years ago. And a lot of people didn't realize that those track records that were going down one after the other was because they were only, Keeneland's only had the dirt back on it for a couple of years. So, it was just a little deceptive. So, with that, I wanted to bring that up because yesterday I thought at Saratoga there was definitely a speed-friendly racetrack where it was difficult to make up ground, and the track carried home a couple of horses that might not have won anyway. What I do on those days when I believe it's a true bias as opposed to a false bias, you're not going to see it in the winners because, they went wire to wire. So I'll downgrade those performances a little bit if I think the track helped carry that horse home. But when you look back at the charts and you watch your replays and you make notes and you see a horse close for second or close for third from well off the pace and make up several lengths in the stretch, that's a horse I want to watch next time out. That's a horse that I want to put on tracking trips, made up significant ground against a speed bias or a speed-friendly racetrack. And those horses come back, catch a fast track in the right setup, and bang, bang, bang. You catch them, and you'll get big prices on a lot of them. And there was one day. Go back in history a little bit. I think it was at Belmont Day where there was a speed bias. And forgive me, my memory sometimes gets a little shady, but I don't know if it was a closer's bias or a speed bias, but we were tracking horses out of it on tracking trips. And I would say we got about 8 or 9 winners in a row at ridiculous prices. We would just score down the line. And we rode the opportunities that track bias presented for about 2 or 3 months afterwards, maybe even 4, to a lot of winners. I think it was 7 or 8 runbacks in till we finally had one get beat. And that was just a great run that we went on at tracking trips, and it was a lot of fun. And That's from knowing the difference between a real and fake bias. And if you go to PasTheWire.com and check out some of those articles, and even check out, I think we did a video or a podcast on it as well, which you can find on the website as well, and on Past the Wire TV probably. But it's worth checking out, especially if you have any confusion as to what makes a real or fake track bias. And it's definitely not listening to analysts and people on TV, because they throw that label up there after a race or two, and it's just, they're dead wrong. It's very misleading, and it could make you make wagers that are not the smartest and or sharpest wagers that you could possibly be making. So real and false track bias, very important to learn and understand the difference between the two. And do your due diligence before you label a track one way and or the other. Today, we got a lot of rain yesterday at Saratoga, more rain coming today. Last night, sometimes you have those meets. I remember the last meet I spent the entire meet up there was the year Unshaded won the Travers with Shane Sellers and Carl Naska. I spent the whole meet up there that year. I used to do it every year, but that year, I didn't do it for a while. And, now recently I just been going for like a week or 10 days for the Travers and whatever. But used to spend the whole meet, then stopped, and then I went up for that entire meet. And man, did it rain. Some meets you just get nothing but rain. A couple of years ago when I went for the Travers, it had rained every week until the week I got there, and I was joking with everybody. I brought the Florida sun, and it was nice for that Travers week. So you just never know up there. But this year you had your share of rain, and today I got a feeling we're looking at a decimated card, especially the second half of it. And you've got in the late pick 4, for example, you got 3 out of 4 races that are scheduled to be on the turf. All had big fields. Great betting pick 4, pick 5, and pick 6, as well. But probably going to get decimated. One of the horses I wanted to mention, and I thought was a little interesting. We'll see what happens. And I sense that the filly was entered with the idea that it might come off the turf. Now, I don't know that for sure, but I have a feeling. And, you got 3 main track onlys in there. So if it comes off the grass, like I think it will, people have a tendency to automatically go after the main track onlys. I have a feeling this particular filly, who looks a little cheap, but is coming in very confident off 2 nice wins for Fausto Gutierrez. Fausto Gutierrez is a guy from Mexico, trainer, very, very good trainer, and he trains that really, really good mare, Latrushka, who is one of the top mares in the country, and we see the fantastic job he's done with her. In the 8th race, he claimed Vegas weekend for $35,000 out of a maiden claiming win at Gulfstream Park, where she won by 5. Ran her at Gulfstream Park back in an allowance optional claimant, non-winner 1. Ran an okay 3rd, then went to Pimlico, won pretty easy, non-winner 1, optional claimant. She wasn't entered to be claimed in either one of those races. Then came back, won again at Indiana Grand by 4 lengths. So she's coming off 2 nice wins where she sat very close to the pace. Didn't go to the lead, but sat just off the pace, made that early move. Today she gets Ricardo Santana, who is very aggressive, very, very gutsy rider, who I like a lot. Not an abundance of speed in there. I have a feeling that the race is going to be scratched down to a small field. And I think this one can make a lot of noise under those circumstances, especially if, and this is the key, and this is what I think we should watch for, if the track is playing the way it played yesterday and we got just a speedy track. Now, Saratoga's funny, okay? When it rains at Saratoga, the track does have a tendency to develop a bias, but it's not always a speed bias. Sometimes when it gets a little muddy and a little heavy, it kind of gets a bias where the place to be is down that crown, down the middle of the track, closing late. So you never really know how the Saratoga goo, mud, or slop is going to play, so you got to watch it. But yesterday, I thought, and I think the charts would reflect, and if you know the horses and their capabilities and how they run, I think it would all point to a very speed-friendly track, if not a significantly biased racetrack. So with that, Vegas Weekend was a horse I thought had a really good shot if things unfolded correct and comes off the grass the way that I suspect it will. She's a mine shaft out of a Smart Strike. I mean, he could have put her in there saying, hey, if it goes on the grass, we'll take a shot on the grass with her. But I have a feeling that Fausto was kind of playing weatherman a little bit and being a little creative and put his filly in a very good spot to possibly get a win up at Saratoga, where he has not started a horse as of yet. I don't know if we're going to see Latrushka up there or not. I certainly hope so, but he's got this one, and I think he's got her in the right spot in a race with not a lot of speed. And she can go if she has to. She's been on the lead before. She didn't win that way, but she's been on the lead before. And I think with all that confidence under her belt right now, off those two last wins, if Ricardo opts to do that, she can certainly get brave on the front end. So we'll see. We'll see if it goes that way. The stake, the Union Avenue. You've got a pretty heavy favorite in there. You've got Sadie Lady, who's 2-5 on the morning line. She's fast. She's speed. She's never been at Saratoga. She also comes in confident off a win in the Dancing Renee with 124 pounds today. She had 123 last time. So she's spotting some weight to these other fillies. I don't know. Is she a cinch? She's probably going to be tough on the front end. There was really only one other horse that I thought had some serious upside potential, and that was the lightly raced horse, the 3 Irish Constitution, who Joel Rosario rides for Raymond Handel, who does a really, really, really good job. This filly won her debut at Saratoga last year, came back, ran into Spinaway, didn't run that good, lost to Vequist, who we know what she did, but kind of an in and outer, runs good, runs bad, runs good, run bad, kind of put 2 decent races together the last 2. We'll certainly have to step up, but she's a Constitution. She's lightly raced. She may like the track today. We'll see, but I thought she was worth a look in a race where the morning line 2-5 shot obviously is going to be tough to beat, but you never know. The other races I think are going to come off the grass if they're not already. It is what it is. We just got to deal with these races. Another horse I will mention, and it's an angle that I like. It's back in the 5th race. There's a horse for Horacio de Paz, who is another astute horseman and trainer in my book. That I watched the work at Saratoga on the 3 Shalimar Gardens, who hasn't run since May, freshened up a little bit, comes back here at Saratoga off a good race. And I liked the last 2 works. Now, there were 2 other horses in that race that worked really good. I thought Sarah Harper worked really good for Ron Moquette and looked to me like she's got some run. So I wouldn't be surprised if she runs good. And Mott's horse, Silver Strand, who didn't look that impressive looking at her, but I thought also worked pretty good. But, a lot of times in a race like this, I'll give the little bit of an edge to the one that has that start under the belt. And that would be Shalimar Gardens, although the other 2, like I said, worked probably as good as she did. But I like Shalimar Gardens' work, and I like that little bit of a layoff to let them, grow up, take in that first experience of that first race, and come back and see if they can go forward. She's an Uncle Mo. She did get mud first time out and ran a good third with Junior Alvarado. Today she gets Jose Ortiz. But, Belmont mud in May is different than Saratoga mud, slop, or goo in mid-August. So, you can't really gauge from that race how much she's going to like the track today or not. But she is by Uncle Mo out of an officer mare, so breeding says that wet track should be no issue whatsoever. So stay tuned on that. There wasn't a lot else to really go after today. Hopefully the rain clears off by Alabama Day. We're looking for another major wager. We had a big weekend last weekend. Hopefully we'll find another high oak pretty soon, but it only takes one of those. We know that. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Again, condolences to Mr. Hughes' family and everyone whose life he touched in some positive way, and there are many people on that list. So that's about all we've got for today. Tune back in tomorrow for Past the Wire TV. Go to the YouTube channel, subscribe so you don't miss any of these videos. They're also up on the website, pastthewire.com. Check out those articles if you get a chance on the real and fake track biases. And definitely, I don't think there's anybody who likes this sport that's not going to enjoy the conversation, the one-on-one with Lafitte Pincay when we put that up on, I guess maybe Monday, when all the weekend excitement is over with. Great conversation, and that was a great story about Affirmed and Alydar in the Travers Stakes. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and ciao for now. We will reconvene in the AM. Nobody does it better.